Sam Carter looked out of the spacecraft window as they approached the Kreskin homeworld. The planet's purple sky and orange lands made him feel like he was in a dream. This was humanity's first visit to meet the Kreskins, a reptile-like alien, race known for their great strength and advanced technology. 5 minutes until landing, said the pilot's voice over the speaker. Sam checked his communication devices one more time. As the team's communication specialist, he needed to make sure everything worked perfectly. Next to him sat Commander Kate Murphy, her face serious as always. Remember the briefing, everyone. Kreskins value strength above all. They might see us as weak because of our soft skin and smaller size. Sam nodded. Humans were indeed quite different from Kreskins, where the aliens had tough scales, powerful limbs, and stood nearly 7 feet tall. Humans seemed fragile in comparison. The ship landed with a gentle bump on the ceremonial grounds. A group of 10 Kreskons waited for them, their scales gleaming in the orange sunlight. Their leader, Elder Zack, stepped forward as the humans exited their ship. "Welcome to Kreska," said Elder Zax in a rumbling voice that Sam's translation device quickly converted to English. "We are pleased to begin this historic meeting between our worlds." Commander Murphy bowed slightly. "We are honored by your welcome, Elder Zax. The people of Earth look forward to a friendship between our species." The formal greetings continued, as both groups walked toward a large stone building. Sam noticed that the Kreskins moved with surprising grace despite their size. Their scales shifted colors slightly with their movements, showing hints of blue and green. Inside the building, the human team sat across from the Kreskins at a massive stone table. Sam set up his equipment in the corner, ready to record everything and help with any translation issues. The standard translator devices worked well, but sometimes cultural meanings got lost. "Our species may be different," said Elder Zax, "but we share the stars. Let us find what else we share." For 3 hours, the humans and Kreskins talked about trade, science, and maybe one day sharing technology. Sam noticed that the Kreskins seemed impressed by how quickly humans learned and adapted, even if they found the human body strange and soft. During a break in the talks, Sam stepped away to check his equipment. He overheard 2 Kreskin guards talking in their own language. "The soft ones show wisdom even without strength," said one guard. "Yes, but would they protect others as we do?" "That is the true test of worth," answered the second guard. Sam smiled to himself. Despite their differences, both species worried about the same things: safety, trust, and finding allies in a big universe. As the meeting started again, Sam felt a slight shake under his feet. At first, he thought he imagined it. Then it came. Again stronger. Elder Zack stood up suddenly, his scales turning a dark red color. "Earthquake! Everyone must exit now." The ground shook violently. Pieces of the stone ceiling began to fall. The humans and Kreskins rushed toward the exits, but the shaking grew worse with each second. "Stay together," shouted Commander Murphy, as the human team tried to follow the Kreskins toward safety. A huge section of the ceiling collapsed between Sam and the rest of his team. He found himself cut off from the others, dust filling the air around him. "Sam, can you hear me?" Murphy's voice came through his earpiece. "Yes, Commander. I'm okay, but I can't get to you." "I'll find another way out," Sam replied, coughing from the dust. "Be careful. Follow the emergency plan. Get to open ground if possible." Sam looked around and saw a narrow hallway that seemed mostly undamaged. He started moving carefully through it, using the light from his communication device to see through the dust. The ground continued to shake, but less violently now. As he turned a corner, Sam heard strange, high-pitched sounds coming from behind a partially collapsed doorway. The sounds didn't match anything he had heard from the adult Kreskins. They were higher, almost like the cries of young animals. Moving closer, Sam peered through a gap in the fallen stones. What he saw made him freeze. 5 small Kreskins, clearly, young cubs huddled together in the corner of a room. Part of the ceiling had fallen, trapping them inside. They were only about the size of human toddlers, with brighter scales than the adults and wide, frightened eyes. Just as Sam was about to call for help on his comm device, he heard heavy footsteps. 2 adult Kreskins rushed toward the collapsed room, calling out in their language. Sam's translator picked up their words. The nursery has collapsed. The cubs are trapped. The 2 Kreskins tried to move the fallen stones, but more of the ceiling seemed ready to collapse at any moment. One Kreskin turned to the other, their scales now a pale yellow color that Sam hadn't seen before. The space is too small. We cannot reach them without causing another collapse, said the first Kreskin, clearly distressed. But the toxic gas from the broken pipes will fill that room soon, replied the second. And look, this one is injured. Sam saw that one of the adults had a large stone pinning their leg. The injured Kreskin tried again to move toward the cubs but couldn't free themselves. Without thinking about it, Sam stepped forward. I can help, he said, his translator converting his words to the Kreskin language. The uninjured Kreskin turned to face him, surprised by the human's presence. The passage is too narrow. The stones are too sharp for your soft skin. Sam looked at the gap again. It was small, but a human could fit through where the larger Kreskins couldn't. He remembered his training. In first contact situations, actions often spoke louder than words. I'm smaller than you. I can fit, Sam explained. Those are your young, aren't they? Let me try to help them. The 2 Kreskins looked at each other, then back at Sam. The injured one spoke, their voice strained with pain. Why would you risk yourself for Kreskin cubs? Sam thought about how to answer. He decided simple truth was best. Because they need help. On Earth, we believe protecting the young is important, no matter whose young they are. Before the Kreskins could argue further, another tremor shook the building. More dust fell from the ceiling. The cries of the cubs grew more desperate. Sam touched his earpiece. Commander, I've found Kreskin young ones trapped by the collapse. I'm going to try to help them. Sam, wait for the rescue teams, Murphy ordered. There's no time, Sam replied. There's toxic gas leaking in. I'm the only one small enough to reach them. Sam removed his outer gear, keeping only his thin inner clothes so he could fit through the narrow opening. The Kreskins watched him in silence, their scales shifting between colors. I'll bring them back, Sam promised as he began to carefully move the smaller stones to create a passage. I give you my word. With one last look at the worried Kreskin parents, Sam took a deep breath and crawled into the darkness, toward the frightened cries of the alien cubs. Sam crawled through the narrow passage, his elbows and knees scraping against sharp rocks. Dust filled his nose and mouth. The space was so tight that at times he had to turn sideways to squeeze through. In the dim light from his communication device, he could see that the walls around him were not just stone but had carvings on them. Sam, report your status. Commander Murphy's voice crackled in his ear. I'm making progress, Sam whispered, trying not to breathe in too much dust. The passage is very narrow. I can see why the Kreskins couldn't fit. The rescue teams are 20 minutes out. The building is becoming more unstable. You need to hurry or turn back. Sam paused to look at one of the carvings on the wall. It showed smaller figures with soft outlines helping larger scaled figures. The image seemed old, worn by time. There's something strange here, Commander. Ancient carvings that almost look like humans and Kreskins together. Focus on the mission, Sam. Get the cubs. If you can do it safely, then get out. Sam continued forward. The cries of the cubs grew louder. The air was getting harder to breathe. He could smell something like rotten eggs, the toxic gas the Kreskins had mentioned. Finally, he reached a small opening that led into a larger room. This must be the nursery. Sam peered inside and saw the 5 Kreskin cubs huddled together, in the center. They were much smaller than the adults, only about 3 feet tall, with brighter colored scales in shades of blue and green. Their eyes were large and round, filled with fear. When they saw Sam, they made high-pitched whistling sounds and moved closer together. One of them, slightly larger than the others, spread its small arms wide as if protecting the others. It's okay, Sam said softly, knowing they wouldn't understand his words but hoping his tone would calm them. I'm here to help. He eased himself into the room. The ceiling was partially collapsed, leaving only about 4 feet of height. Sam had to crouch. He noticed the air was worse here. the toxic gas making his eyes water and his throat burn. "I've reached the cub," Sam reported to Commander Murphy. 5 of them, all alive. "But the gas is getting stronger. I need to get them out now." "Be careful, Sam. We don't know how they'll react to being handled by a human." Sam remembered his briefing about Kreskin physiology. Even the cubs had protective spines that could extend when they felt threatened. Their scales, while smoother than adults, could still cut human skin. He slowly reached into his pocket and took out an emergency ration bar. Breaking off a small piece, he held it out toward the cubs. "Look, food. I'm a friend," he said gently. The cubs made confused chirping sounds. The largest one sniffed the air, then took a tentative step forward. The others stayed back, watching. Just then, another tremor shook the building. Dust and small rocks rained down from the ceiling. The cubs cried out in fear. Sam knew he couldn't wait any longer. He had to act now. He moved forward and reached for the nearest cub. As his hands touched its scales, the cub froze in surprise. The scales were smoother than he expected, warm to the touch. Sam carefully lifted the cub, being mindful of the small defensive spines along its back. The cub was heavier than it looked, maybe 30 pounds. "It's okay, little one," Sam whispered as he cradled the cub against his chest. To his surprise, the cub didn't fight. Instead, it curled against him, its small claws gripping his shirt. One by one, Sam gathered the other cubs. The largest one resisted at first, making warning sounds and extending its spine slightly. But when it saw that the others weren't harmed, it too allowed Sam to pick it up. Sam's arms and chest were now covered with small cuts from the cub's scales. His hands were bleeding from several places, but he held the cubs securely, 2 under, each arm and the smallest one cradled against his chest. "I have all 5, Sam reported, his voice strained. "Coming back now." "Hurry, Sam," urged Commander Murphy. "The building is shifting, and the Kreskins are getting very anxious about their young." Sam began to make his way back through the passage. It was much harder now with the cubs. The space that had been barely large enough for him alone was now impossibly tight with 5 scared alien cubs. "I'll have to find another way," Sam said. "This passage is too small for all of us." "There might not be another way, Sam," Murphy warned. Sam looked around the nursery room. There was a second opening on the far side, partially blocked by fallen stones. "I see another possible exit. I'm going to try that." Setting the cubs down for a moment, Sam pushed at the stones blocking the opening. They were heavy, but he managed to move enough of them to create a space that might work. "Stay close," he told the cubs, gesturing for them to follow him. To his surprise, they seemed to understand. As Sam crawled into the new passage, the cubs followed, moving with a natural grace despite their fear. This new path was slightly wider, but sloped steeply upward. Sam could feel the toxic gas getting thicker as they climbed. His head began to pound and his vision blurred at the edges. "Status report," Murphy demanded. "Found a different way," Sam managed to say between labored breaths. "Cubs. Following me. Gas getting worse." Behind him, one of the cubs made a weak sound and stumbled. Sam turned back and saw it was the smallest one, its scales turning a dull gray color. Sam picked up the small cub. It felt limp in his arms. Its breathing was shallow and irregular. "One of the cubs is sick from the gas," Sam reported. "Need to move faster." He pushed forward, his own breathing becoming more difficult. The cut on his hands stung. His muscles ached from the awkward crawling position. Ahead, Sam could see a faint light, an opening to the surface. He moved toward it with renewed energy. "I think I see a way out," he told Murphy. "Not far now." The passage ended at a small hole that opened up to the outside. They were on the side of the building, maybe 15 feet above the ground. Fresh air rushed in, and Sam took deep breaths, clearing his head. "I can see you," called Murphy over the comm. "We're right below you. The Kreskins are here too." Sam looked down to see a group of humans and Kreskins looking up at him. The adult Kreskins made loud calls when they saw the cubs. With Sam, "The hole is too small for all of us to go through at once," Sam called down. I'll send the cubs down one by one. Wait, Murphy said. The Kreskins say it's too dangerous. The cubs might not understand to hold on. Sam looked at the smallest cub in his arms. It wasn't breathing right. It needed help now. We don't have time to wait, Sam said. The smallest one is sick. I'm coming down myself. Looking at the wall of the building, Sam saw that it was rough stone with many handholds. With the cubs following him this far, he had an idea. I think they can climb, he said. They've been following my movements. Sam turned to the 4 stronger cubs and made a climbing motion with his free hand. Then he pointed down toward their parents. The largest cub seemed to understand. It moved to the edge of the hole and looked down. Then, with surprising skill, it began to climb down the wall, its claws finding easy purchase in the rough stone. The 3 other healthy cubs followed, moving with natural climbing ability. The adult Kreskins below made encouraging sounds. Sam looked at the sick cub in his arms. It was too weak to climb on its own. He would have to carry it. Holding the small cub securely against his chest with one arm, Sam began the difficult climb, down with his free hand. His fingers, slick with blood from the cuts, struggled to maintain their grip. Every movement sent pain through his scraped knees and elbows. Halfway down, his foot slipped. Sam grabbed desperately at the wall with his bleeding hand, managing to catch himself but scraping his palm badly in the process. The small cub stirred, seeming to sense the danger. To Sam's surprise, it extended its tiny claws and dug them into his shirt, helping to secure itself. Almost there, Sam gasped as he continued the climb down. When his feet finally touched the ground, Sam nearly collapsed from exhaustion. Gentle hands took the sick cub from his arms. Through his blurred vision, Sam saw a Kreskin healer rushing forward with some kind of breathing device for the cub. The other cubs were already reunited with the adult Kreskans, who made deep rumbling sounds of relief and gratitude. You did it, Sam, Commander Murphy said, supporting him as his legs threatened to give way. You saved them all. Sam looked up and saw the Kreskans watching him. Their scales had turned a deep blue color he hadn't seen before. The injured parent from the collapsed nursery hobbled forward, supported by another Kreskin. The soft one has the strength of spirit, the injured Kreskin said. This day will be remembered in Kreskin history. Sam tried to smile, but darkness was closing in at the edges of his vision. The last thing he saw before he passed out was the small cub, now breathing normally in the healer's arms, reaching out toward him with tiny clawed hands. Sam woke up in a strange room. The walls were a soft orange color and the ceiling was much higher than any human room. He lay on a bed that felt like it was filled with warm sand. His hands and arms were wrapped in a clear, gel-like material that glowed faintly blue. He's awake, said a human voice. Sam turned his head to see Olivia Rodriguez, the team's doctor, sitting beside his bed. Where am I? Sam asked, his voice rough. In the Kreskin Medical Center, Olivia explained. You've been asleep for almost 10 hours. How do you feel? Sam tried to sit up. His whole body ached, but not as badly as he expected. Like I climbed through a rock crusher, but I'm okay. The cubs, are they all right? They're all fine, thanks. To you, said Commander Murphy, walking into the room. The little one that was sick has fully recovered. The Kreskins have some impressive medical technology. Sam looked at his bandaged hands. What's this stuff? Kreskan healing gel, Olivia said. It's amazing. Your cuts are already mostly healed and there won't be any scars. Murphy sat down on a stool near the bed. Her face was serious. Sam, do you realize what you've done? No non-Kreskin has ever handled their young ones before. It's something they don't even discuss with outsiders. I didn't have time to think about it, Sam admitted. I just knew they needed help. Well, you've caused quite a stir. The Kreskin High Council wants to speak with you as soon as you're able. And those carvings you saw in the collapsed building, the Kreskins are very interested in those too. Before Sam could ask more questions, the door opened again. Elder Zax entered, followed by the injured parent Kreskin that Sam had met during the rescue. The parent's leg was now wrapped in the same blue gel that covered Sam's hands. The human rescuer is awake, Elder Zax said, his scales shifting to a bright green color. This is good news. The parent Kreskin moved forward, towering over Sam's bed. I am Vex, parent of the smallest cub you saved. I have come to offer my life debt. Sam wasn't sure what to say. I'm just glad I could help. Anyone would have done the same. No, said Vex firmly. No one else could have done what you did. No one else would have risked themselves for young, not their own. And no other species could have fit through those passages with such dexterity. Elder Zax stepped forward. Human Sam, our historians believe the carvings you saw are from the Age of Prophecy, over 10,000 cycles ago. They speak of soft-skinned allies who would one day come from the stars and protect our most vulnerable with their bare hands. Murphy looked surprised. You're saying there's an ancient Kreskin prophecy about humans? We do not know if the carvings refer to humans specifically, Elder Zax said carefully. But the timing of your arrival and Sam's actions have great meaning to many Kreskins. Sam felt uncomfortable with this talk of prophecies. I was just in the right place at the right time. Vex made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter, modest as well as brave. Come, the cubs wish to see you again. They have not stopped asking about the soft one who saved them. Sam carefully got out of bed, testing his legs. They were sore but steady. Olivia helped him remove the gel wrappings from his hands. The skin underneath was pink and new, with barely visible lines where the deep cuts had been. They followed Vex and Elder Zax through wide corridors. Other Kreskins stopped and watched as they passed. Some made respectful gestures toward Sam. They're treating you like a hero, Murphy whispered to Sam. I just did what needed doing, he replied. They entered a large room with a sunken center, area filled with soft sand. Playing in the sand were the 5 cubs Sam had rescued. When they saw him, they made excited chirping sounds and rushed toward him. The smallest cub reached him first, moving with energy that showed no sign of its earlier sickness. It stopped just in front of Sam and looked up at him with large golden eyes. This is Nix, my youngest, Vex said proudly. He wished to thank you himself. To Sam's surprise, the small cub carefully reached out and touched his hand. Its tiny claws traced the lines where the cuts had been. The other cubs gathered around, chirping and whistling. They're saying thank you in their way, explained Vex. Cubs normally only touch their close family members. This is a great honor. The largest cub, the one that had tried to protect the others, stepped forward. It made a series of complex sounds that Sam's translator couldn't pick up. Raz asks if you would play with them, Vex translated. It is a special request. Sam looked at Murphy, who nodded encouragingly. I'd be happy to, he said. For the next hour, Sam sat in the sand with the Kreskin cubs. They showed him their games, taught him how to make sand sculptures the Kreskin way, and climbed over him as if he were a living jungle gym. Their scales didn't cut him this time. They seemed to know how to control the sharpness. As he watched the cubs play, Sam noticed something odd. His hands were developing a faint pattern where they had been cut. The pattern matched the scale arrangement of the cubs. Olivia noticed it too. That's strange, she said, examining his hands. It's like your skin cells have taken on some properties of their scales. Elder Zax leaned in to look. The mark of the caretaker, he said, his voice filled with awe. Another sign from the prophecy. Is it permanent? Sam asked, a bit concerned. We do not know, said Elder Zax. No human has ever borne such marks before. Later that day, Sam and the human team were invited to a special meeting with the Kreskin High Council. The grand chamber was filled with important Kreskans, all watching Sam with interest. Elder Zax stood before the council. Honored members, I present Sam Carter of Earth, the human who saved our cubs with his bare hands, who bears the mark of the caretaker, and who may be the soft-skinned ally from the ancient prophecies. An older Kreskin with silvery scales spoke up. The timing cannot be ignored. Just as humans arrive on our world, the earth shakes, revealing the ancient carvings, and a human saves our young ones precisely as the prophecy described. Another council member added, and the marks on his hands, such a thing has never happened before. Sam felt uncomfortable with all the attention. With respect, he said, I'm just a communication specialist who happened to be in the right place. I don't think I'm part of any prophecy." The silver-scaled elder made a sound like gentle thunder. "Prophecies often find their way to completion through those who do not seek them out, human Sam. It is not your belief that matters, but your actions." Commander Murphy stepped forward. "Whatever the meaning of these events, we hope they can lead to stronger ties between our worlds." "Indeed," said Elder Zax. "The High Council has decided to grant humans unprecedented access to our medical technology, as thanks for Sam's bravery." This announcement caused excited murmurs among both the Kreskins and the human team. Kreskin medical technology was far advanced beyond Earth's. "Additionally," Elder Zax continued, "we wish to establish a permanent embassy and cultural exchange program. If the prophecy is true, our peoples are meant to work together." As the meeting continued, Sam felt something tugging at his pant leg. He looked down to see little Nix had somehow snuck into the chamber. The cub made a soft chirping sound and held up a small object. Sam carefully took it. It was a carved stone pendant shaped like a hand. Nix chirped again, then scampered back to Vex, who waited by the door. "A gift from my cub," Vex explained. "It is a symbol of protection in our culture. Nix wishes you to have it." Sam closed his fingers around the small pendant, feeling its weight. "Tell Nix I'll keep it always," he said. As Sam rejoined his team, he noticed the pattern on his hand seemed to glow faintly in the chamber's light. Whatever these marks meant, whatever prophecy the Kreskins believed in, one thing was certain. Something important had begun here, something that would change both their worlds forever. 3 days had passed since the rescue. The human delegation was preparing to return to Earth with news of the new alliance with the Kreskins. Sam stood at the window of the guest quarters, looking out at the orange landscape. The marks on his hands had not faded. If anything, they seemed more distinct now, forming precise patterns that matched Kreskin cub scales. "You're going to cause quite a stir when we get home," said Commander Murphy, joining him at the window. Sam smiled. "Medical will probably want to study these marks for months." "Not just the marks," Murphy said. "The Kreskin medical technology they're sharing because of you will change everything. Their healing methods are centuries ahead of ours." A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Olivia entered, followed by Elder Zax and another Kreskin Sam hadn't met before. "Sam, this is Lox, the High Council's chief historian," Elder Zax explained. "He has been studying the carvings you found." The elderly Kreskin moved forward slowly, his scales a pale yellow with age. "Human Sam, may I see your hands?" Sam held them out. Lox examined them carefully, then nodded. "It is as the ancient texts described. The caretaker's pattern forms a bond that cannot be broken." "What does that mean exactly?" Sam asked. Lox unrolled a large scroll covered in Kreskin writing and images. "Our oldest stories tell of a time when another race visited our world, long before we had space travel. They had soft skin and clever hands. They helped our ancestors during a great disaster, saving many young ones. Then they left, promising to return when we reached the stars." "You think these visitors were humans?" Olivia asked. "We cannot be certain," Lox said, "but the similarities are striking. And the marks," he pointed to Sam's hands, then to an image on the scroll showing hands with patterns on them. "These are described in detail. The texts say only one who truly cares for Kreskin young can bear such marks." Elder Zax spoke up. "The High Council has a request, Sam Carter. We wish for you to remain as our first human ambassador. Your actions have earned the trust of all Kreskans." Sam was stunned. "Me? But I'm just a communications specialist, not a diplomat." "Sometimes the best diplomats are those who act from the heart rather than from training," Elder Zax said. "But we understand if you wish to return to your home." Before Sam could answer, alarms began to sound throughout the building. A Kreskan guard rushed into the room. "Elder Zax, the aftershocks have damaged the old temple district. Several buildings have collapsed, including the hatchling school." Elder Zax's scales darkened with concern. "Are their young ones trapped?" "Yes, at least 20 cubs. Rescue teams are on the way, but the passages are too small for adult Kreskins." Sam looked at his marked hands, then at Murphy. I have to help. Murphy nodded. Go. We'll contact the ship for any equipment you might need. Within minutes, Sam was in a Kreskin transport vehicle racing toward the Temple District. The vehicle moved with incredible speed, hovering above the ground. Through the window, Sam could see clouds of dust rising from damaged buildings. The school is there, said Vex, who had joined them as soon as the alarm sounded. My older cubs were inside, for their history lessons. Sam's heart raced when he saw the building. Half of it had collapsed into a pile of rubble. Kreskin rescue workers were already there, using scanning equipment to locate the trapped cubs. We've found them, a rescue worker reported as Sam approached. They're alive, gathered in the central play area, but the entry is blocked and the passages are too narrow for us. Show me, Sam said. The worker displayed a 3D scan on a portable device. Sam could see a group of small figures huddled in a chamber deep within the collapsed building. There was a narrow passage that led toward them, but it twisted and turned in ways that would be impossible for the large Kreskins to navigate. I can get through there, Sam said confidently. The rescue team quickly provided Sam with emergency equipment, a breathing mask, a small device to test for toxic gas, and a light source. As they prepared him, a small crowd of Kreskins gathered to watch. The human with the caretaker's mark goes to save our young again, someone said loudly. The crowd made sounds of approval. Vex put a heavy hand on Sam's shoulder. My own cubs are among those trapped. I trust you with their lives as I did before. Sam nodded, feeling the weight of that trust. He approached the narrow opening in the rubble. It was even smaller than the passage he'd navigated during the first rescue. I'll guide you through with the scanner, said the rescue worker, handing Sam a small earpiece. But be careful, the structure is unstable. Sam took a deep breath and began to crawl into the passage. It was tight, barely wide enough for his shoulders. He had to wriggle forward inch by inch, scraping against rough stone on all sides. Turn left at the next opening, the voice guided in his ear. The scanner shows a slightly wider path there. For 20 minutes, Sam crawled through the maze of collapsed hallways. Several times, small tremors shook the rubble around him, sending dust and pebbles raining down. Once, he had to back up and find a different way when a passage suddenly collapsed ahead of him. Finally, he reached a small opening that led into a larger space. I think I'm here, he whispered into the communicator. Yes, the cub should be just ahead of you, the rescue worker confirmed. Sam squeezed through the opening and found himself in what had once been a circular room. Part of the ceiling had fallen in, but a section remained intact, creating a sheltered area. Huddled beneath this shelter were about 20 Kreskin cubs of various sizes. When they saw Sam, they didn't show fear. Instead, several of them chirped excitedly and pointed at his hands. The human with the marks, one of the older cubs said in broken English. Like in our history lesson. Sam was surprised. You speak English? The cub nodded proudly. We learn. Today's lesson was about human Kreskin prophecy, then building shake. Using his scanner, Sam checked the air quality. No toxic gas this time, which was a relief. He did a quick check of the cubs and found that none seemed seriously injured, though. Several had minor cuts and bruises. Is everyone here? Is anyone missing? Sam asked the cubs. The older cub, who spoke English, did a quick count, chattering with the others in their language. All here, 22 cubs. Sam reported back through his communicator. I've found them. 22 cubs, all appear stable. No serious injuries that I can see. Excellent, came the reply. But our scanners show the building is becoming more unstable. You need to evacuate immediately. Sam looked around the room. The way he had come in was too small for him to lead the cubs out one by one. We need another exit, he said. The English-speaking cub tugged at his sleeve. Teacher showed us emergency tunnel, for cubs only, too small for teachers. It pointed to what looked like a solid wall. Sam examined the wall and found a cleverly concealed door sized for Kreskin cubs. It opened to reveal a narrow tunnel that sloped gently upward. Does this lead outside? Sam asked. The cub nodded. To garden, for emergencies. Perfect, Sam said. He turned to address all the cubs. We need to go through this tunnel. It's safer than staying here. To his surprise, the cubs organized themselves quickly, with older ones helping younger ones. They seemed to trust him completely, perhaps because of the marks on his hands. Sam let the cubs enter the tunnel first, with the oldest leading the way. He followed behind the smallest ones, making sure no one was left behind. The tunnel was much too small for him to stand, so he crawled on hands and knees. As they moved through the tunnel, Sam could feel vibrations in the ground. The aftershocks were continuing. He urged the cubs to move faster. The tunnel gradually widened as it ascended, eventually opening into a walled garden area. Sunlight streamed in, temporarily blinding Sam after the darkness of the tunnel. As his eyes adjusted, he saw a wonderful sight: the cubs rushing toward a group of anxious adult Kreskins waiting in the garden. Parents reunited with their young ones amid sounds of relief and joy. Sam climbed out of the tunnel just as another strong tremor hit. Behind him, the tunnel entrance collapsed with a rumble. "Just in time," he murmured to himself, watching as the last of the cubs was scooped up by its parent. Vex approached, carrying 2 cubs in his massive arms. "Once his heroism, twice his destiny," the Kreskin said solemnly. "You truly are the one from the prophecy." As the Kreskins gathered around him, making sounds of gratitude and respect, Sam looked down at his marked hands. Perhaps there was something to this prophecy after all. Perhaps this was exactly where he was meant to be. 1 year had passed since Sam first set foot on the Kreskin homeworld. So much had changed. Standing on the balcony of the new human embassy, Sam looked out over the city. Buildings of stone and metal gleamed in the orange sunlight. In the distance, a human ship was landing at the spaceport. "The medical team from Earth has arrived," said Joe Martinez, Sam's assistant at the embassy. Sam nodded. He still found it strange to be called Ambassador Carter. He had accepted the role after the second rescue, understanding that he could do more good here than anywhere else. "Let them settle in," Sam said. "We'll meet them tomorrow for the ceremony." The ceremony was a big event. After a year of working together, the Kreskins were officially sharing their advanced medical technology with Earth. Doctors and scientists from both worlds would work side by side at the new medical research center. Sam looked down at his hands. The scale patterns had become a permanent part of him. Earth scientists had been fascinated by the change, running every test they could think of. The marks weren't just on the surface. His skin had actually taken on some properties of Kreskin scales, becoming more resistant to heat and pressure. "Ambassador Elder Zax has arrived with the cubs," Joe announced from the doorway. Sam smiled. The 5 cubs he had first rescued were no longer tiny. After a year of growth, they were already half the size of adults, but they still acted like excited children whenever they saw Sam. In the embassy's main hall, Elder Zax waited with the 5 cubs. They wore formal Kreskin sashes that marked them as special in their society. "Sam," called Nix, the smallest cub who had been sick during the rescue. Nix could speak quite good English now. All the cubs had been learning the human language. "Hello, Nix." Sam greeted him warmly. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" Nix nodded eagerly. "We practice every day. We'll not make mistakes." Elder Zax's scales shifted to a pleased blue color. "The 5 chosen ones have been preparing for this honor since you agreed to stay with us, Ambassador Carter." The chosen ones was what the Kreskins now called these 5 cubs. Their survival and their connection to Sam had made them important in Kreskin culture. They were the first of their kind to form a bond with a human. "I'm still not sure I understand all the parts of the ceremony," Sam admitted. "It is simple," Elder Zax explained. "The cubs will perform the Mark of Allied Spirits, a ritual normally reserved for our greatest heroes. They will symbolically connect your human colleagues to our world." Later that evening, Sam met with the newly arrived medical team from Earth. Dr. Lisa Kim led the group of 12 doctors and researchers. They looked tired but excited after their long journey. "Ambassador Carter," Dr. Kim said, shaking his hand. "I've read all about your adventures here. And your hands, may I?" Sam held out his hands for her to see. The doctor examined the scale pattern with professional interest. "Remarkable. We've studied the samples and scans you sent, but seeing it in person, It's like your cells have adopted Kreskin DNA without losing their human properties. The Kreskin scientists think it has something to do with how their young one's scales interacted with human skin, Sam explained. It only happens under very specific conditions. And tomorrow we'll see this ceremony they've planned? Asked another doctor. Sam nodded. It's a great honor. The 5 cubs I rescued will perform a ritual that marks the official beginning of our medical partnership. The next morning, the Great Hall of the Kreskin High Council was filled with important figures from both worlds. Humans in their formal attire stood beside Kreskins with ceremonial scale paint that made their natural colors even more vibrant. Sam took his place on the stage beside Elder Zax and Dr. Kim. The human doctors and scientists sat in a semicircle, looking slightly nervous but excited. A low humming sound filled the hall as Kreskin musicians played traditional instruments. Then, from the back of the hall, the 5 cubs entered in a formal procession. They wore elaborate ceremonial garments that sparkled in the light. The ritual of allied spirits will now begin, announced Elder Zax. These 5 cubs, saved by human hands, will create the sacred bond between our worlds. The cubs moved forward, with practiced grace. Each went to stand before a human doctor. Nix, now the unofficial leader of the group, stood before Dr. Kim. We offer the mark of trust, Nix said clearly in English. As we were saved, so we offer safety. As we were touched by human hands, so we touch with honor. The cubs each raised their right hand. In their palms they held a small amount of shimmering blue paste. This paste contains elements from both worlds, Elder Zax explained quietly to Sam. Minerals from Kreska, plants from Earth, combined using both our technologies. The cubs carefully placed their palms against the foreheads of the human doctors. When they pulled away, each doctor had a small blue mark in the shape of a Kreskin scale. The mark will fade in a few days, Elder Zax said, but the meaning will not. They are now officially part of Kreskin society, able to work with our most advanced healers. The hall erupted in sounds of approval. The Kreskin High Council members drummed their tails against the floor, their traditional form of applause. After the ceremony, there was a celebration in the embassy gardens. Humans and Kreskins mingled, sharing food and stories. Sam watched with satisfaction as the 2 species, so different in appearance, found common ground. A word, Ambassador? Vex appeared at his side. The parent of Nix had become one of Sam's closest friends on this world. Of course, Vex. The High Council has decided to share something else with your people, Vex said. The star charts from our ancient texts, showing the worlds our ancestors visited thousands of years ago. Sam's eyes widened. That's incredible. Our scientists will be thrilled. There is more, Vex continued. One of those worlds matches what you call Earth. The texts describe visits to your world long before our recorded history. Sam was stunned. So the prophecy went both ways? Your people visited Earth and now we've come to Kreska? It seems our peoples have been connected for far longer than we knew, Vex said. Perhaps humans and Kreskins meeting was not chance but reuniting. As the celebration continued, Sam felt Nix tug at his sleeve. The young Kreskin had brought some of his friends to meet the famous human. Tell them the story, Nix pleaded. About the rescue. Sam smiled and sat down on a bench. The Kreskin cubs gathered around him, their eyes wide with interest. Even some of the adult Kreskins moved closer to listen. It started with an earthquake, Sam began. I found myself separated from my team in a strange place with carved walls. As he told the story, Sam realized something important. The tale of how a human saved Kreskin cubs with his bare hands had become more than just his personal experience. It had become a legend that would be told on 2 worlds for generations to come. The small marks on Sam's hands were proof of something extraordinary, that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from physical power, but from the willingness to reach out and help, even across the gulf of different worlds and different species. Human and Kreskin, separated by biology and vast distances of space, had found common ground in the most basic instinct of all, protecting the young and vulnerable, no matter whose they might be. As night fell on the Kreskan world, with its orange lands and purple sky, Sam looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, more species waited to be discovered, more connections to be made, and thanks to what had happened here, humanity would go forward not as conquerors but as caretakers. A new legend had been born and its story was just beginning.